Hello, folks. Welcome back to the channel where I talk about web, node, and developer productivity related tools. This is first ever video in this series where I'm giving you a glimpse of what all tools I use and how they increase my productivity or even sometimes they decrease my keystrokes. So today we are going to talk about shells and terminals. I'll be talking about both Mac and Linux, but most of the things are similar if I'm not mentioning them explicitly. So the terminal I am using is called as iTerm2. It is very famous on Mac, but it's not available on Linux. So for Linux, you can go with Terminator. That's another good terminal emulator you can use there. Now, what does this terminal emulator gives me? It gives me ability to use shell, plus it gives me ability to have windowing system inside the terminal window. What do I mean by windowing system is, so if I hit Command Shift E, you can see that I have another split screen kind of terminal available here. If I hit Command Shift O, it is a horizontal split, right? So there are lots of other things available here, and again on top of that, if you see, I have ligatures enabled, right? So if I type triple equals, so if I remove the spaces here, it turns out to be a three lines, right? So this is called as font ligatures, and this is a functionality provided to you by terminal. It has nothing to do with shell. Okay, so these are the basic things of why terminals or why terminal emulators are good. Okay, and apart from that, now let's go to shell. So this shell is called as ZSH. Okay, and this is, I guess, now a default shell. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's default on Mac. And now let me go to any project directory. So if I go to this, now you can see that it has a lot more information here on my terminal even before I have any command running, right? So let me just give you a brief walkthrough of what all these things are. So this is my current directory where I'm working. So if I do pwd, this is my current directory, right? Then this is the Git branch of the project I'm working in. If it is a Git repository, only then it will show. So if I go to my home directory, it's not a Git repository, so it will not show me the branch, right? So yeah, so that's one thing. So let me go back to this. Then it is showing me via that since this is a node project, since it has a package JSON, right? It assumes that it is a Node.js project, so it shows me this node version that I am using. So if I go to some different project, it shows me different node version because this is set up to use different node version, right? I'll be talking about more in more details about how these are things are configured and what is the thing I am using to have this configured and everything. Okay. Uh, then yeah, let me go back to the date. So again, here it is showing me that how much the last command took to completely execute, right? So it took 427 milliseconds. And here it is showing me the current system time I have. So if you see here, it is showing me the current system time. Okay, so this is brief about how my shell is configured and how it helps me understand the things of my current project configuration. Now let's go to ZSHRC. So if you are aware that every shell comes with its own configuration file. Generally, it starts with dot and ends with RC, and there is a shell name in between. So if you are on Bash, you will have Bash RC. If you are on ZSH, you will have ZSH RC. If you are on some other fish shell, maybe you will have dot fish RC, something like that, right? And all these files are supposed to stay inside your user's home directory. right? So if I go to zshrc, uh, I can't do cd obviously. I'll have to do vi, right? So this is the configuration for my shell. Now, what I want to emphasize here more on is this particular line. So this is something called as ZSH framework. Okay, and this ZSH framework is named as Oh My ZSH. And there are lots other available. You can choose whatever you want to, but my favorite is Oh My ZSH. And this is how you enable the framework, right? Now, what does this framework do is it gives me the ability to have a common practices uh, on my shell that are being used by my colleagues or even by very good people, right? So it gives me that ability by these plugins. So I can have multiple plugins configured in my shell, and then I have lots of commands and shortcuts available for me that are being used by many other well-known and very famous people in the technical industry, right? So let's walk through one by one them of each plugin. Okay. Before that, I want to show you one thing that I have something called as auto jump as a plugin enabled that is not built into the ZSH thing. So if I do J, so let me just show you. I'll go to my home directory, right? And if I go from here to say dot slash personal, I don't know, code, yeah, personal, right? Then I have next gigabytes, right? So if I have to go to this directory, I'll have to type the whole path, right? Can we not simply uh, have some shortcut around this? Uh, because most of the time your last directory name is kind of unique, right? So your project name most of the time is unique, at least to your machine. So let me go back to my home directory, and there's a shortcut available that I have configured, and I'll show you how that is done. So if I now say J next web RTC, it will directly take me here, right? So I don't have to type this whole big command. So this is a very good advantage of saving on your uh, keystrokes, and it eventually will save the time for you as well. So this is configured using something called as auto jump. Yeah, here it is. So I'll leave the link to this particular thing into the description below, and you can use it on any shell. Not necessarily you have to use G shell itself, but G shell is more compatible with auto jump. And if you want to use plugins, then obviously you will have to use Z shell because that is via Oh My ZSH. Okay, so let's jump into these plugins one by one. So what does this Git plugin do? This Git plugin is giving me multiple aliases readily available for me. I know, I hope you guys know what is alias. In shell script or in shell world, what is alias is nothing but you can define something uh, 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 alias, as the word English word says, that it's kind of a nickname to some big command, right? So I can simply say y is equal to yarn, right? And if I do y hyphen v, uh, it's as good as saying yarn hyphen v, right? So I'm basically saving some keystrokes for myself. Now, if you are once you are familiar with this term, you want to define lots of aliases for you. But then once you go into pairing mode or you want to work onto someone else's machine, those aliases are not available there, right? So these are some ways that you can use, and those aliases are readily available for you even if you switch machine or you go on colleague's machine, right? So you can simply enable this Git plugin, and if you are aware, there is a command called as Git Status, right? Uh, and it shows you the current status on your current branch of the Git repository, right? Now, this is kind of very commonly used Git command. then why not add a alias to it, right? So we can simply say GST, which is nothing but the same thing. But now the best thing is that you don't have to define the alias, something like alias GST is equal to Git status, right? This is given to you by this plugin. All you need to do is simply add this and you are ready to use it, right? Then there is another plugin, and there are lots of other commands in this plugin available. You can learn about that onto the OMyZSH's documentation. Okay. Then there is Git Ignore. So if you are aware of how Git ignores your some of the files, this Git Ignore is very useful because I can simply say GI node because GI is Git Ignore, uh, and it will give me the list of all the files and directories that I ideally should ignore in my Git repository. Right, so it gives me all that, and the best part is since this is a shell command, you can simply do something like this, right, and it will append all this to your uh, current git ignore, and you can simply commit that git ignore and push it. That's as simple as that. And there are lots of other things available to that as well. This is via something called as TopTal's git ignore CLI, and they have a site as well. I'll leave the link to that site in the description as well. Now let's go to the next plugin, which is Sudo. What does this do? So suppose I want to add some DNS entry into my local hosts file, right? So I can simply say vi/etc/hosts. But now if you see, this is read only, right? So if I try to delete some line here and I try to write, it will give me error that this is a read only and you cannot write, right? So I'll have to quit, go here, go to the start of the command and type sudo, right? This is kind of very time consuming. So how can we automate this? You can simply say vi/etc/host, but now you remember, oh, you forgot sudo, right? So you can simply hit escape twice and you have the sudo available. You can again hit it twice and sudo will go away, right? So this is something available to you via this sudo plugin. ZSH Auto Suggestions is a very good plugin that gives you suggestions to autocomplete your current command that you are typing based on your history of the shell, right? So suppose I am typing ls. Now you see that this is having a kind of opaque package.json. So it is suggesting me that you recently ran this command. Do you want to run it again? I can simply hit right arrow key and press enter, right? And I'm done. So this is possible via ZSH Auto Suggestions. Single car is another very good plugin where you have lots of single character aliases to your commonly used commands. So curl is one command where you can do something like this. But why type curl every time, right? You can simply say u-x get google.com and it's readily available for you. ZS's Interactive CD is another plugin that helps you by reducing your keystrokes. So suppose I want to go to CD package and I don't know what all directories are there. So what I can do is I can simply hit tab and it gives me a list of the directories inside here, and I can use arrow keys to go into any of the directories. So if I want to go into front end, I can simply select that and go inside that, right? So this is another interactive CD thing. dir cycle is very nice and I like it. So I can hit. So if you see here, I just came into this packages front end directory, but I want to go back to my previous directory, which was next WebRTC. So I can simply hit Control Shift left arrow, and it will take me there, right? I can simply again hit Control Shift right arrow, and it will take me again to there, right? So it's kind of history thing, right? So and it remembers everything you have done, right? So you can see that it went to home, again it went to next WebRTC, then it went to front end, then it went to home, then it went to next WebRTC, then it again went to this thing, right? So This is very handy. npm is something that I personally haven't used yet. Maybe I'll even remove it. I don't find it useful. Encode 64 is another very good if you are web developer and you want to encode some of your strings, or you want to create authorization header based on basic authorization header. You can simply come here and say E64, and you can simply pass any string to it, right? Anything to it, and it will give you base64 encoded string for this. You can again do D64 and pass that string to this, and it will give you the original string back, right? You don't have to remember that A to B and B to A syntax. Uh, Extract is another one I am not using. .env is something I really like. So if I go to my here and I see .env, I have these things configured here, right? So if I go, let me. So if I go back to my home directory and I again do jnext WebRTC, you can see it's printing demo, right? This demo is coming from this uh, .env, right? Because I have this here, and I have my directory specific aliases defined here as well. So if you see ns, which ns, right? Which ns, it is alias to yarn workspace openRTC frontend start. So if I go to some different directory, maybe I'll go to julw, and if I say which ns, it is alias to npm start. Why? Because if I open .env, it has alias defined here, right? So this is very handy, and you can specify your directory specific aliases that are very useful for you, right? So again, let's talk about Zsh Reload. So this is another good plugin. So suppose I change something into my ZSH RC, okay, which is open here. I want to maybe say delete this particular npm plugin, right? Or even I want to uncomment this alias, right? So if I search for what is which Oh my ZSH, it is not found, right? So if I uncomment this alias and I save this, again I come here, but this is not loaded, right? So I can simply set src, and now if I run again the same command, it is now alias, right? So this is very another handy plugin that I like, because I don't have to every time close the terminal and reopen it, just to have my shell configuration reflected, whatever is the latest part into it, right? ASDF is another plugin that I'll talk about into some later videos. History, I don't know what this plugin does. So yeah, maybe I'll create another video on extract, npm, and history. Okay, that's all, folks, I have for this video, and see you in the next one. Cool. Thank you.